The world is changing at rates that are unprecedented. And it's not just the world that's changing, it's the people in it. I mean, think about your own life, for example, and think about your friends, your family, the people you interact with, how these people have changed. For me, the change has been so profound that it's impossible not to notice. And it's only getting crazier by the day. And I think there's one major reason that is driving this change. I mean, I think there's a lot of factors, but I think there's one thing in particular that's causing this, and that is that we are undergoing spiritual warfare like nothing we've ever seen. It's getting kind of crazy. And when I talk about spiritual warfare, I'm not talking about religion specifically. That might tie into this. It might be a part of it. But when I talk about spiritual warfare, I'm talking about there's an agenda out there that is geared and designed to crush the spirit of every man, woman, and child on this planet. That's the way it seems anyway. I mean, let me know in the comments below if you agree or disagree with what I'm about to say, but if you think about our daily lives and the stuff that we're subjected to every second of every day, everything is negative. Everything that comes from the mainstream media, everything that comes from social media, and all that has now bled into society. I mean, think about the mainstream media. Even 20, 30 years ago, it has always been the most negative stuff that you see on TV and that you see on the news. And the reason for that is because they know that the negative stuff is what elicits an emotional response from the viewer. That's what sucks people in, and that's what gets people talking. So that's what they show us. It's always been about ratings when it comes to that, but now I think it goes much deeper than that. And because we're being pummeled with this stuff every single day, it is bleeding into society. This is the way that we're starting to live our lives. You have all these people out there that are now unhinged. They're angry, they're cold, they're callous, they're negative. And it's because we're subjected to negativity 24/7 that negativity bleeds into our lives and it infiltrates society as a whole. And I think that's what's happening. But there's a very specific way they're going about this. It's very methodical and it's very intentional. I mean, let's think about a wild animal, for example. If you catch a wild animal or you force a wild animal into a corner and it believes that it has no way to escape, that its life is in danger, that wild animal suddenly becomes very unpredictable and it becomes very dangerous. The people that are running these narratives and forcing all this stuff down our throat, they know this about us because it's true for us. We're animals too. We're part of this planet. We're part of this symbiotic relationship with this earth. And they know that if they push us into a corner and we lose all sense of hope, then we become dangerous. We become unpredictable. And then they can't control us, essentially. Not to get too far out there in the weeds on this, but that's essentially what is happening. So what they do is they dangle the carrot. That's the analogy I like to use. They dangle the carrot up front. They give you a little bit of hope, a little bit of optimism, so that you don't feel like you're totally trapped, so that you believe there's a way out. While on the back end, simultaneously, they're slowly chiseling away at our spirit. They're slowly taking things away from us. So it's like they give you a little up here while they take a lot back here. And it's not enough to make us feel trapped and make us feel hopeless, but it's enough that we take notice. We just don't do anything because it's not enough for us to freak out. So we whine about it on social media. We talk about it with our friends. We get mad about it, but we don't actually take action and do anything. And that is exactly what is happening. That's the very fine balance that they have found that works. And think about this in our daily lives. All the things that we've been exposed to and that we've endured over the last 5 or 10 years specifically, that is exactly the playbook that has been used. Gas prices. They know that if gas prices shoot up from $1.50 to $5 overnight, then we're going to freak out. I mean, that happened on 9/11. Gas prices suddenly, within a few hours' time, shot up to over $5 a gallon. And there were lines, even in my rural community, over a mile long to get in the gas stations. And they all sold out. So they know they can't do that. So what do? They slowly and gradually increase the price of gas over a period of time. And then they'll scale back a little bit. They'll go up a little more. They'll scale back a little bit. Then they'll go up even further than that. And that's exactly what they do. And once the prices are up to a certain limit, they never come back down. They're never going to be back down to what we saw before, to $1 and some a gallon. It's just not going to happen. And the same is true with inflation. It's the same playbook. Think about inflation and all the stuff that costs an astronomical amount now. These prices didn't shoot up overnight. It was a gradual, slow progression. And that is to keep us from feeling like we're trapped, to keep us from feeling like we're stuck in a corner. And something else that's a prime example of this is something that's pretty new, and that is AI. AI data centers are being stood up all over the country. Over the next 5 years, they're investing over $500 billion into the infrastructure of AI. And the bad part about this is that a single AI data center can use as much power and as much water as hundreds of thousands, and in some cases, millions of households. So that is causing the price of electric and water to skyrocket, and it's going to keep going up. And in the news just a couple weeks ago, there was actually a town in Missouri that protested this, and they were in complete outrage over the fact that this AI data center was going to be developed there. And because the pushback was so large, they actually sided with the community, and they decided not to go through with putting that data center in place. Now, that is enough to give us hope, to make us believe that there's a chance that we can win this fight. But while they canceled that one AI data center, there are dozens and dozens more that are being planned and that are being stood up all over the country, despite there being massive pushback from those local communities. So again, they're dangling that carrot. They give you a little bit up front while they take away more on the back. And that is spiritual warfare. That is slowly whittling away at our spirit and degrading our spirit. And to go a layer deeper on this, we have adopted a global view. Instead of seeing the small, isolated things that happen within our community, we now see all these small, isolated things happening on a global scale. And the problem with that is that we're mostly seeing the negative stuff, the stuff that's geared to instill fear in us. And if you think about this, throughout all of history, we would have only been seeing that kind of stuff on a very isolated, small scale, because again, it's only the stuff that would be happening in our community. So if there's some sort of tragic event that happened, it would have been a very isolated incident, and it's probably something that would have only happened occasionally, not every single day. But because we have adopted this global view, we do see this stuff every single day. We think this stuff is happening on an industrial scale, and essentially it is, but that's only because we are seeing the entire world, and that is the stuff that's being fed to us. It's all of these small local things that are happening, but it seems like it's every second of every day, and that everything is negative and that there's no good left in the world. But that is because we're only seeing what they want us to see, number one, and number two, we're seeing this across billions of people. Again, instead of it just being isolated to a single community of maybe a couple thousand people, we're seeing this across a community of billions of people. So of course it's going to be more frequent. Of course it's going to be more regular. And of course there's going to be more bad stuff that we're seeing, because we're seeing stuff from all the cities, from all the communities, good and bad. But all the good stuff gets overridden, and that is not the stuff that elicits the emotional response. So that is not the stuff that we see. Every second of every single day, we are seeing death, we're seeing destruction, we're seeing negativity. And that stuff is largely relatable because it's stuff that we deal with in our daily lives. And even though that stuff isn't happening directly to us, it feels very personal because we see it going on around us, and we see the impact that it's having to other people that are outside of our community, but we can relate to them. And that in turn is crushing our spirit. But we were never meant to see death and destruction and negativity on an industrial scale like we do today. And I believe that is what is slowly whittling away at not just our spirit, but on our emotions in general. Because if you think about people and the fact that they've changed in the ways that they have changed, it is largely their emotions. Their emotions have changed. There's a lot of people now that are very negative. There's a lot of people that have lost their sense of direction. They have no hope, no drive, no ambition. They're very callous, cold, and essentially numb. And I think that's probably the best way to describe it, is that people have become very numb. And I think the reason that is happening is because we are seeing all this stuff on an industrial scale. It has desensitized us, and we have lost most sense of emotion, and especially the good emotions like empathy and compassion. A lot of people no longer possess these things. If you look at some of the posts on social media of tragic events that have happened, a lot of people in the comments now, instead of being empathetic to that person and showing emotion towards them and feeling bad for them or showing compassion, you'll see a lot of people now saying things like, that's Darwinism, that's natural selection. You'll see people laughing and making jokes and mocking the situation. And to me, that is absolutely disgusting behavior, because what that essentially shows is that we are being dehumanized. The human life no longer has value anymore. And that's the way people perceive it, because again, we're being pummeled with this stuff every single day. So it no longer elicits the same emotional response because we've become so desensitized to this stuff. But it is essentially because a lot of us are stuck in this digital realm. It is dehumanizing and it devalues human life. And as a matter of fact, I would say that it's slowly devaluing the human experience in general, and it is degrading our spirit, because instead of people feeling anything at all, they just feel numb now. And I would say that that is probably what's breeding all these NPCs, these non-player characters, the ones that just float through life aimlessly, the ones that seem like they're just running on autopilot, like there's some sort of pre-programmed simulation that's been downloaded into their minds, and that's the path they follow in life. They never step outside their comfort zone. They never push themselves. They have no drive, no sense of ambition. They don't do anything in life except for what they're told. And for me personally, that is the definition of hell. I cannot imagine going through life aimlessly without ever trying to better myself or better my situation. I can't imagine navigating through life being completely emotionless and not feeling anything. It just seems so unnatural, and it seems inhuman to do that. That is not the way we're designed. We are emotional beings. We are put here for a purpose. We're supposed to strive for better and more. We're supposed to build and create. And if we're just floating through life aimlessly, we're not doing that. So therefore, we have no sense of purpose. Therefore, life essentially is meaningless. And that's where I feel like a lot of people are at right now. They just feel like life has no meaning, and for good reason. A lot of that ties back to exactly what we're talking about here. It's the degradation of our emotion, of our spirit, of what it means to be human. And that is exactly why it's fundamentally important that we cannot allow this to continue. We have to stop this dead in its tracks, because if we allow this to continue, it won't be long before society itself is degraded to the point to where there's no return. There's going to be nobody left except for all the people out there that lack emotion, that lack spirit. And it won't be long before the only people that are left are mindless, emotionless drones. And at that point, everybody is essentially a robot. And with the influx of AI and the fact that technology is basically taking over our lives, I feel like that's exactly where we're headed. But I feel like the first step to digging ourselves out of this proverbial hole that we've dug for ourselves is to realize that this is happening. Realize that there is an agenda 100% out there that is geared and designed to crush our spirit. And realize that we've fallen for it. Accept that fact. And also realize that that's okay. It's okay that we've fallen for it, but now we know. And now we can do better moving forward. We have to realize that the enemy is not each other. It is not ourselves. The enemy is the emotion itself. And we have to realize that the emotion is a result of the things that we see in our daily lives. So the best way to overcome that is to change our environment, change our atmosphere, our reality, change what we see. And we all hold the power to do that. We can do that very simply by drowning out all the noise. Change what we're exposed to. Change what we look at. Avoid TV and the mainstream media at all costs. Surround yourself with positive emotions instead of negative emotions. If you have negative people in your life, you might want to consider ridding those people from your life. If your social media feed is full of negative content, changing that is as simple as changing what you interact with. Because chances are, if negative content is all you see in your social media feed, it is because that is what you are engaging with. You're liking it, you're viewing it, you are saving it or sharing it, and the algorithm sees that, and it's going to continue to feed you that type of content because that is what is keeping you on the platform. But we all have the option to go into those negative posts and click the not interested button. And then we can start engaging with the positive stuff, the stuff that elicits a positive emotional response. And if we do that enough, then the algorithm will change and it will start to feed us positive content. And the negative content that was degrading our spirit and that was turning us into emotionless drones, that is going to change, and that is going to force more positivity into our lives, and that in turn is going to reshape the way we view the world and is going to reshape our lives. Suddenly, instead of us being full of despair and believing that everything is negative and there's no good left in the world, the good now is all we see. And taking small, simple steps like that is all it takes to reshape your reality and change the way you view the world. That right there is the way that we get our spirit back. It seems very simple, and sometimes it seems so simple that we think to ourselves there's no way this could work, but it truly is that simple. It was that simple for us to get ourselves into this mess, and it is that simple to dig ourselves back out of it. And once you've come to these realizations and you've changed your perspective, the only thing left to do is to pay it forward. Pass this information along to somebody else that might need it. And the fact of the matter is, there's a lot of people out there right now that need it. because there's a lot of people that are full of despair. There's a lot of people that are stuck in a perpetual state of fear, believing that everything is bad and that there's no good left in the world. And they are allowing all this negative emotion to degrade their spirit. So share your knowledge and the things that you've learned with the people around you so that we can create a movement around this, so that we can turn back the hands of time and pull more people out of this spiritual warfare that we all now seem to be enduring. Every single one of us holds the power to create change and to reshape our reality into whatever we want to make it. And the only question that's left to answer is, what do you want to make it?